We've all heard stories of this startup getting acquired by so many million, billion dollars, and we all think in our heads, Mera number kab aayega? Startups are not gold mines. These are not places to join to get rich quickly. This is paper money. It might never become real. And even when it does, you have to spend a lot of money to actually make this into stocks, pay your taxes. It's not free money right now. Now, I'll talk about some red flags, some signals that you can point out. Hello, girls and boys, how's it going? Let's admit it, the lure of the startup is unmissable. The beanbags, the hustle, the environment, the ESOPs, the evaluations, and the dream of making millions. We've all heard stories of this startup getting acquired by so many million, billion dollars, and we all think in our heads, Mera number kab aayega? When will my opportunity come? This video is exactly about that. For about 5 years, I have had the opportunity to work across 2 startups, and I am here to tell you today the truth that probably nobody will ever tell you. This is not a motivational video. The goal of this video is very simple. 3 things. 1. When should you join a startup? Who should join a startup? When do you quit a startup? And third and most importantly, how not to get trapped in that shiny world of startup. Everybody should experience it once in their lifetime, and that is what I'm going to talk about today. Let's get started. Okay, so let's start with the first one. Who should think of joining a startup? And the short answer to this is everybody. Why? Because working in a startup will give you a perspective that working in big tech can never ever give you. So once in your career span, at least, you should join a startup and spend at least a year or more in a startup. It will give you a very rounded perspective. But there are certain nuances in it. So let's talk about some personality traits that are important when you're working in a startup. So, who should join a startup? People who want accelerated learning. They are definitely well suited for a startup. Why? Because in a startup, you would be doing everything from coding to fixing customer issues to handling customer inquiries, maybe even selling the product. So that kind of learning cannot be had in a large enterprise. The setup isn't supported of that. So if you're looking for accelerated learning, definitely go for a startup. People who want ownership. Now, in a startup, you just cannot say, hey, this is not my job, or there is a separate team for doing this. You are the person, you will be doing anything and everything. When I was working in a startup, because I come from a DevOpsy / support sort of background, I had the keys to the hardware inventory of the startup. I was also managing the laptops, the WAN network, the printers, everything. And all of this didn't come as additional responsibilities. It was a logical extension that, hey, if you're handling servers, handle this also. People who are looking for more responsibilities and ownership, startup is definitely good for you. People who want to understand how a business actually works. So outside of the technology field, how your product is marketed, how the market segmentation is done, how a sales pitch is done, how a promotional pitch is done, how the numbers are calculated, how the number crunching is done. All of this you can learn in a startup. Number 5 and most important, people who are okay with uncertainty. What do I mean? Because in a startup, there are several key decisions which are changed every single day, if not every single week, definitely. So there is no fixed routine for your day, for your job, for your charter. Everything is fluid, things will keep changing. One new customer will prop up and everything else will start centering around that customer, and your roadmap and your plan can go hunky-dory, right? So things, if you like fluidity, if you can strive in that sort of environment, or if you want to experience that sort of an environment, definitely go and work in a startup. Okay, now the next segment. what must you understand before working in a startup? Now, obviously, when you think startup, you're thinking shares, ESOPs, lot of money. All of that is great. But let me burst this bubble very, very quickly for you. According to CB Insights, about 70% startups fail in the first 20 months of their launch. Also, if you've heard of Y Combinator, they also say that 95% of early stage startups never make it to the ESOP liquidity phase. You might yourself be having ESOPs of one or two companies which never made it to liquidity. So be mindful of that. Do not go bonkers when you get ESOPs for 10 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 50 lakhs. Just know this is paper money. It might never become real. And even when it does, you have to spend a lot of money to actually make this into stocks, pay your taxes. It's not free money right now. Not just yet. So be mindful of that. So what should be the real motivation for joining a startup? And number one always is learning. Because what you will learn in a startup in 1 year, you can never learn it anywhere across in any sort of enterprise. That is a given. So join the startup for learning. Number two, join a startup if you want to learn responsibilities. Why do I say that? Because the decisions that you take, they matter. For example, in a large enterprise, you rarely take any decision that goes and matters when a customer deployment happens. Because there are so many layers to the organization, and rightly so, because large enterprises have complex software, they need to pass through certain layers. However, the decisions that you take in a startup, the way your database is structured, the way your caching policy is done, the way your CI/CD pipelines are running, the way your binary is structured, all of these decisions will very quickly have an impact when the product goes to a customer and they start using it. So if you want to learn responsibility and the weight of your decisions in real time, join a startup. Number three, believing in the vision of the founder. Now, this is very, very important because you would want to work in a startup like it's your own. And the only way to do that is when you believe in the vision of the founders and the co-founders. And fifth and most important, if you believe in the people and the culture. Because working in a startup should be an absolute fun. You should be excited about going into work every day. And doing 14-18 hour work days should not even be considered an issue. You should not even be thinking about it because you should be so excited about what you're building that time is no longer a factor. If these kind of things excite you, then you should definitely look at joining a startup. Never join a startup to get rich quickly. Join a startup to get sharp very quickly. If you've ever worked in a startup or if you want to work in a startup like this, type excitement in the comments and I will know that you've connected with me on what I'm talking about. Now let's talk about a section which nobody rarely even talks about on YouTube, which is when do you actually quit a startup? Now, this is very, very interesting because imagine if you're so invested in a startup, not just financially, but physically, emotionally, how do you decide to quit? Now, I'll talk about some red flags, some signals that you can point out. Now, before that, I'll give you a personal story. Now, in the second startup that I was working in, there was a period when things started going south. What do I mean by that? We were not selling the product that well. The number of customers started decreasing and we were burning more money than we were earning. And that's when that is the true test of the founders. Now, fortunately, I was in a situation where the founders were very, very transparent about this, and they said, hey guys, we have to make a call. We don't have enough money to last for the next 6 months. So, for the senior leadership, they cut 10% of our salary. The next month, it was 20%. A couple of months later, it turned out to be 40%. So, salaries were being cut. We were not selling. And these are some of the red flags that I learned. The good thing was we had complete transparency of what is going on. And finally, I went up to the founder and I said, hey, I have a family to support. I have certain financial obligations. So I will probably not be able to continue any further. They took it in the right spirit. And that's when I moved out of that startup with mutual agreement. I also know of several friends who were not this lucky with the kind of startup they had and the kind of founders they got involved themselves. They were shrouded in a cloud of uncertainty. The communication was not so clear and transparent, and the work environment kept getting toxic and toxic. They kept getting sucked in more and more. So, based off my experience and some others that I've observed very closely, here are a couple of red flags on when you should quit a startup. Number one, most important, when the culture becomes toxic. What do I mean by that? When you're no longer excited about getting into work, excited about what you're building. When that excitement goes down day after day, week after week, month after month, you know there is something wrong in that. Number two, when the leadership is not transparent enough, when they're not open about their failures, their struggles, the struggle of an organization at a whole, how much liquidity is there in the bank, when they're not transparent and just saying, hey, this is just a phase, I'm talking to this shareholder and that founder, and next month in 2 weeks, we are getting $5 million, $10 million of funding. When all you see is dreamy la la land, you know there is trouble coming. Number three, when the salaries start getting cut. That is the time when you know that shit has hit the ceiling. That's a definite red flag. But along with that, if there is transparency, that luckily happened for me, you're still on a safe page because you know what's coming. Number four, when the business stops selling. When you stop getting new customers, you know that this cannot continue for too long. And that is a signal where a lot of people miss, where all they were looking at is what the co-founder is saying, what the founder is talking about. They get excited about a technology refresh. They miss to see what sales is happening, how many new customers are we getting, how many new projects are we getting, because that is where the money comes from. It does not come from a technology refresh or adopting a new AI engine. None of that matters until you're selling the damn thing. And fifth and most important, when you stop learning. That's the time when you should quit the startup. Because if you're not learning, then what is the point of even being there? Alright, so there have probably always been one or more instances where you have interviewed for a startup and you are thinking, hey, this looks very cool. I really want to work for a startup. I've never worked. Or I've worked 10 years back, I want to experience that thrill, that excitement one more time. I'll give you a 5-step framework for how to evaluate a startup before joining it. Number one, and the most obvious thing is, what is their financial runway? What does that mean? Financial runway means if tomorrow the money stops coming in, there is no more funding, how long can this startup last with the money that they have in the bank? So if they have $100 in the bank and if you're spending $10 a month, then you will last 10 months. Very simple math. So do that math. Ask that question to the founder. How much money is there in the bank? And what is the runway if the money stops coming in? It's a very, very fair question to ask the founder. They should give you a straight answer. Most probably the answer is 6 to 8 months or 1 year. And by that time, we are looking at a funding of another $10 million. That's probably the answer that you're going to get from a seasoned founder. Now, if you want to drill deeper, look for a couple of signs. how good is the office? Is it too good to be true? Is it Google style with lots of free snacks? Too swanky an office with 15 people, but the culture is too extravagant. There are too many parties happening every week. These are certain red flags. Also, on the other side, you can check on how many sales emails are coming in. We won a new customer, we got a new order. How many of these are coming in? How many customer issues are being reported? How many escalations are happening? And sometimes it's tough to get these answers before joining in. If possible, talk to somebody who's already working in that startup and subtly try and figure out these hints. These will help you. Number 2, very important, look at the vision of the founders. If they have been around for a while, check what kind of companies they have taken from 0 to 10 and 100 and what has been their contribution in it so far. Have they themselves founded something and sold it off, or were they part of a journey, or were they part of an enterprise? And then listen to their interviews, listen to their blogs. If you get a chance, talk to them and see what their passion is and how much of that is illusionary and how much of that is real. Startup founders have got to be a little illusion. That is perfectly okay, but not too much delusional. That is a red flag. So watch out for that. I read this quote somewhere on Twitter and I absolutely loved it. It said, "Strong founders have absolute clarity. Confused founders confuse everybody." Watch out for the subtle difference. Then the strength of the technology team, because you're joining a startup for the tech, not for the businessy side of it, most probably, right? So check who the co-founder or the CTO is, who's the most technically advanced person in that team, and see what their background has been. Check out their LinkedIn profile, check out their post, and check out their work. And if that is aspirational for you, then that is perfectly the right place for you. The next one, their marketing and sales engine. If they've already started selling, even if they're preparing for it, check for the quality of their sales material. If you get that sales pitch today, would you go and buy that product? Check for that, how convincing their sales pitch is, because at the end of the day, I'll be brutally honest, the tech in a product really doesn't matter beyond a point. The first thing is the marketing and the messaging. And if that is not prim and proper, the tech will never even see the light of the day. I've seen so many technically brilliant products lying on the shelves, not even shipped, not even gotten in front of one real customer because of lousy marketing. So be very careful about that. And then the fifth and the final one, the culture and the learning environment of the team. If possible, before joining a startup, say, hey, can I spend one day with the folks there, just being a fly on the wall, just observing what's going on here. That will tell you a lot about the culture, the people, how they work, how excited they are. So these are some of the things that you should check before you join a startup. In closing, the truth that nobody told you, startups are not gold mines. These are not places to join to get rich quickly. Think of startup like a gym where you're learning every day, you're becoming stronger every day. Now, working in a startup has definitely changed my career because it forced me to grow. It forced me to take responsibility. It taught me speed. It taught me how to think like an owner. So my advice to you, girls and boys, is very, very simple. Join startup for the right reasons. Quit when the signals are bad and learn to navigate the difference between those two. Choose wisely and most importantly, protect your long-term career because nobody is gonna tell you that. If you found value in this video, comment value so that I know you've watched till the end and you are connecting with what I'm talking about. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye.